Good afternoon folks, welcome to Visordown, welcome to Portugal, and more importantly, welcome to the press launch of the all new, all improved Triumph Tiger 1200. So we've spent 2 days testing this bike out here in Portugal. We did a day on road yesterday riding the Tiger 1200 GT Pro and GT Explorer, which I'm going to talk about in a bit more detail in a moment as to what they actually are. And then today we've been here at the WIM Moto Academy in Portugal testing the off-road capabilities of the very, very good Triumph Tiger Rally Pro. So, first things first, I'm going to take you through what's changed with the model, with the family of Tigers really, because that's a really big change for this year. So we've got a base Tiger, which is now the bottom rung in the Tiger 1200 family is the Tiger GT. That comes in at £14,600 and it's got a bespoke cast wheel setup. It's got a 19-inch front and 18-inch rear, and you get your sort of 3 riding modes on that one. So you get your rain, road and your sport mode as well. Above that you have got the Tiger 1200 GT Pro, and that is coming in, I'm checking my notes because I don't want to get it wrong, at £16,700. For that extra wodge of cash you get some extra gizmos and goodies and electronics and things like hill hold control. Sorry, I think I said it's coming in at £16,700. The next bike up above that is something totally new for the Tiger family, and that is called the Tiger 1200 GT Explorer, and it is effectively a big tank version of the standard GT Pro. You also get some extra little trinkets that you're not going to get anywhere else in that GT Pro GT family, and that is the form of radar sensing blind spot detection systems and a lane change warning. So if you go to change lanes on the motorway and there is a car there, instead of just illuminating in the corner of the wing mirror, it will actually flash just to warn you that there's a car there, which I think is a really very good feature. Moving on to the off-road side of things, which we have been thoroughly enjoying today here at the WIM Moto Academy. We've been riding the Tiger 1200 Rally Pro, which is the bike that you can see in front of me. This is coming in at £17,700, and this is the small tank version, so the 20-litre tank. And this has got the 21-inch wheel set up at the front and the 18-inch on the rear, and it's got slightly more off-road biased tyres, not the ones you can see here, but these are handbook approved off-road tyres that you can buy that are also road legal. At the top of the family tree in the Tiger family, there is of course the Tiger 1200 Rally Explorer, which like the GT Pro Explorer gets the big tank, so the 30-litre fuel tank, which Triumph is claiming is between 400 and 450 kilometres of range, somewhere around that mark. And you also get the extra sort of trinkets that come with Explorer version. So you get the blind spot detection system, lane change warning, and both of the Explorers, get the heated seats as well as standard. So that's basically the family, and the top bike in that range is the Rally Explorer, and that one is coming in at £19,100. Now I can stop looking at my notes for a minute because I've rehearsed this bit pretty well. What is new with the Tiger 1200? It's really easy. Everything. The only thing that is shared across the two models, the previous Tiger 1200 and the new one, is nuts, bolts, fixtures and fittings basically. Everything else is new. The frame, the swing arm, the engine obviously is a new T-plane crank design. All of the bodywork, everything is absolutely all new. And the focus for the bike was really on improving the rideability, improving the ability of the bike, but making it easier to ride and allowing more people to access the box of tricks that is the new Tiger 12. And what they used for that was really the Tiger 900 as a bit of a blueprint and just built out from there. So this is massive amounts lighter than the previous generation Tiger 12. I mean, I've ridden quite a few and they are a little bit of a heifer. I mean, even on the road you can feel the weight of the bike and the centre of gravity is quite high. It's a really tall engine. So they've managed to shave a ridiculous amount of weight. They've got 25 kilograms off the weight of the Tiger 1200, the previous generation, with this bike. It's 25 kg lighter. And Triumph are claiming that it's 17 kilograms lighter than its nearest shaft-powered competitor, which, I mean, we all know what it is, don't we? BMW. So it is massively light, it's massively slim, the riding position's been evolved, obviously all the styling is all new, and there really isn't any shared component across this and the previous generation machine. The other new addition is obviously the new Explorer models, which it's something that other companies have done. BMW have done it with the GSA, with the big tank models on that. And like I said, if you are the sort of person that covers big miles in a day, you like to cross continents on your Triumph Tiger, you know, you've got up to 450 kilometers of range in that tank. If you take it easy, you'll be getting at the upper end of that figure. So it's just an option for the people that like to travel further. Off-road today, Triumph really wanted to show us journalists how well this thing handles off-road. So we've only ridden the Rally Pro, not the Explorer off-road, and that's just to really highlight the ability of the bike in an off-road scenario. So I'm going to talk about the engine just a little bit. So of course it's taken a leaf out the Tiger 900's book, and it's got a new T-plane crank engine. It's still a 1200cc. It's got that special firing order where there's uneven pulses to give you the low down delivery of a V-twin and the top end delivery of an inline triple like every other Triumph. It's increased in power for this year, so we've got 150 bhp and we've got 130 newton meters of torque. And there's other things that have happened with this engine since the launch of the Tiger 12. Triumph have learned so much about that configuration and the way that they could do things and the way they could improve the engine. So the primary balance of this has been changed for this particular model, for the 1200. And it is actually a lot smoother than the old Tiger 900. It doesn't seem quite so vibey, it doesn't thrum and it doesn't hum at speed, which is great because the Tiger 900 was it was almost like an attack dog of a bike. It was the one that you go out and you really attack trails on and you go and do silly things, and most people will be looking at this and looking at doing big miles and covering big distances and traveling two up and stuff like that. And it's perfect for it because it is a lot smoother. I'm going to go through now just a high level look at the suspension and the brakes of both the bikes, and then I'm going to go through the on-road handling and then the off-road handling of each of them, and then give you a verdict at the end. So the suspension on all of the Tiger 1200s is Showa semi-active electronically adjusted suspension. That's front and rear, and that's on all the models, even the base model GT. It is a very trick system, and again, much improved over the old Tiger 1200. I rode some of the last Tiger 1200s that were to come out of the factory at Hinckley, and they were the Alpine edition, and there was another Desert edition, and I rode them, and the electronic suspension was really very good. But there was one thing that it did which I didn't quite like, and it almost disassociated you from what the bike was doing beneath you. You almost felt a little bit seasick. You could hit speed bumps and it would be like a magic carpet where you wouldn't actually feel what you'd ridden over. You feel a lot more connected, and it's not really the hardware that's doing it. I think it's just the algorithms and the IMU working with the suspension and knowing what the bike as a whole is doing that has improved that experience. You've still got all the adjustability in there, so you can go from sporty settings right the way up to comfort if you're riding two up, and it does become a little bit wallowy. But it's got all the adjustment that you'll ever need, and it's really a one-stop shop that you can go to. You can tune the suspension how you like without having to get any Allen keys, spanners. Very good system. All adjusted through the switch cubes on the handlebar and the TFT dash, which, like the Tiger 900, is absolutely, it's huge. It's really clearly laid out, and it's a bonded TFT, so the TFT is right at the front of the dash, which makes it easy to read in all weather. So I'm going to talk about the engine, and I'm going to talk about how it performed on the road. So yesterday we did about 176 kilometers on road, and it was switchbacks, it was, you know, mountain passes, fast sweeping bits, and some motorway as well. So we got the full gambit of what a rider will do on their Tiger 1200. The previous generation bike was super good at that long distance stuff because it was so silky smooth, it was buttery and lovely, and you turn the engine on, sat on the bike, and you really couldn't feel that it was doing anything beneath you. There is more of a character with this bike. Obviously it's got that low down raspy sort of tone and that V-twin almost delivery at low revs, but it's the way that it gets out of corners which is so much improved. It seems to have juicier low to mid-range torque, but it's still got the same torque and that sort of almost the same top end that the old bike did. And it makes more sense for road riding, especially the switchbacks and when you're coming out of slow corners and you just hammer on the throttle. There was no bogging, it was just compliant and tractable and just pulled you up the road with alarming efficiency. I mean, we were riding these things pretty quick yesterday. It didn't quite turn into the dangerous riding competition that some motorcycle launches can, but we were going quick. It was a lot of fun, and I don't think we'd have been able to hustle the old Tiger 12 along those roads at the same speed that we were doing yesterday. So I'm going to talk about the handling of the bike, because it's the biggest thing. When you take 25 kilograms out of a bike that weighed 270, 280 kilograms, something like that, it just has a transformational effect on the way the bike turns. This thing feels so agile, and when you ramp the suspension up into the sportiest settings and put it in that high power sports mode with the most direct throttle map, it feels bloody good. I mean, they've obviously not just changed the suspension reduced the weight, they've changed the centre of gravity, and all the geometry of the bike is kind of all tweaked just to make this the best Tiger 1200 that it could possibly be. And it all has an effect, lots of little incremental changes that Triumph have done along the way to develop it and improve it and create this bike that you can see before you, which is it's head and shoulders above the old Tiger 1200. If you're a fan of the previous Tiger 1200 and there were a lot of things that you enjoyed about that bike, don't be worried. They're not gone, they're just improved, and improved in other areas as well. It's really, really eye-opening and quite surprising. Yesterday, there was some sections where we were going under some trees. There had been a bit of rain the day before, so the rain hadn't completely dried off the road, and there was some slippy bits, and Portuguese roads tend to be a little bit slippy when they get wet. I was really impressed with the traction control, the way it scooped the bike up. It's not too intrusive, and it really only seems to come in when it absolutely has to. You can ramp up the traction control a little bit, but we still had it in a sort of a semi-sport setting, so there was a little bit of slip, a little bit of movement, and a little bit of front wheel lift, but it wasn't anything drastic, and it was still enjoyable to ride, and it was still quick. So I'm going to talk about the off-road handling now. So we've spent all day at most of the day at Wim Moto Park riding on some of the fire trails and the sort of the Portuguese green lanes and some of the tighter, twistier single track stuff as well. I imagine that if you tried to ride the previous generation Tiger 12 along those trails that we're riding today, it would have felt a little bit like you were trying to steer a grand piano while you were sat on top of it. I mean, it was big, it was heavy, it wasn't very direct, it wasn't very responsive, and it didn't have that T-plane engine that could just get you out of trouble if you really, really needed it. It's completely a different motorcycle. This is so easy to ride. I mean, I started off the day riding in the off-road mode, which is kind of the first off-road riding mode, below Off-Road Pro. So there was still a bit of ABS to the front, there was no ABS to the rear, and the traction control would let the bike slip, but then it would gather it up for you and send you on your way. And I don't think I've ever ridden a big capacity adventure bike off-road at the speeds that we were doing that has just felt so easy to ride. The handling dynamics are really benign, it just does exactly what you want. And it's still 250, 240, 245 kilograms, somewhere around that mark, but it definitely doesn't feel it. And there are a lot of adventure bikes in this class that once you take them off-road, that's when you really feel the weight. That's when you really feel that 240 or 250 kilograms of mass. It hides it really well. And the suspension, again, you've got all the adjustability in the suspension, so when you go off-road you can have a sportier, more firm setting, or you can ramp it up and go for something a bit softer and a bit more compliant. I went somewhere in the middle and it was absolutely fabulous. The bike was moving around nicely, but I still had full control and I could really get on the brakes and work the ABS, which is the same system as the Tiger 900, and it's just as good. So that's impressive. So I just touched on it then, but the electronics of this bike are they're not as expansive as some adventure bikes in the class. There are some other adventure bikes that have got more on the electronic front and you can tweak the bike more and do more with it. But then again, with a lot of those other bikes that you're going to buy, you have to then pay extra for those bolt-on riding modes and so on and so forth. Everything comes with it. They're all included. On both of the rally bikes you get the off-road and the off-road pro mode. It's a very comprehensive package, and even if it's a bit too extreme for you, you can still go in and you can manipulate the mode and reduce the throttle map a bit so it's a bit softer, while keeping the traction control importantly in place and the ABS in that nice off-road setting. The final part of the day we did some photographs and some video on a nice sweeping fire trail, and it was a point to really get the back end of the bike kicking out, and that's when we were using Rally Pro mode. So no ABS to the front, no ABS to the rear, no traction control whatsoever. And this thing would just light up on these Michelin Anarchy Wild tyres. It was a lot of fun. So I'm just going to go through a really quick verdict on this one, because after I rode the bike on road yesterday, I thought it was, I was pretty much blown away by the way that it performed, the way it handled, the way the engine is, and the comfort of the thing. And I thought, well, if it's that good on the road, am I going to be a bit let down when I get off-road? Is it going to be compromised for the off-road stuff that we're going to be doing, even though we're going to be riding the Rally Pros? And it was kind of playing in my head all last night as I was getting myself off to sleep. I really didn't need to worry. Triumph have done an absolute number on this thing, and it is the easiest to ride big capacity adventure bike that I've ever ridden. I would take it over a GS, and actually, if you offered me either a Tiger 900 Rally Pro or a Tiger 1200 Rally Pro, I'd take the bigger bike, and that's not something that you often say. You normally go for the smaller, lighter machine than the bigger, heavier one. But this off-road, the extra weight doesn't compromise it in any way. It actually helps it. It makes it feel more sort of more planted. It just feels rock solid and less frantic than the old than the Tiger 900, the slightly lighter, slightly higher power to weight ratio machine. These are going to be in dealers very soon. There are going to be demos available, so get yourself down. If you're looking at it and you've ridden a previous Tiger 1200 model and you're not quite sure about that one, this is not the same bike at all. It's got the same name, that is about it. Triumph have put everything that they can. They've thrown the kitchen sink at the Tiger 1200 and it's been absolutely successful. As we all know, the best beer of the day is the post-ride beer, and as I've not got to ride again, I'm going to sink this, go to the hotel bar and probably have about 5 or 6 others. You've been watching Visordown, folks. Thanks very much. Cheers.